Lamed Daled Amud Bet. We're starting tonight. The Gemara. We're going to do some of the spade work just to lay the groundwork and what's going on in the world of Etrog. Some of it will be familiar. It's kind of going back on things that we already focused on previously for those in person and for those on Zoom. Last we met was a sidebar shear. Not that it was irrelevant, but it was delving into the world of the Ravid, the Ramban, Uda Imei, trying to figure out what is going on in terms of the seeming contradiction between the Mishnah on 32b and the Mishnah on 34b. We spent time on that. We already learned through the Gemara. We're up to the new Mishnah. So tonight, let's do the new Mishnah, 34b, about Etrog, and we'll reserve for next we meet, which again will resume on Mondays, 7:15 p.m. for the summer months. And then we'll see some Rishonim and try to delve into it. So this is sort of the baseline shear to get some of the groundwork. Initially, the reading of the Mishnah already sounds very familiar to us, just plugging in which of the Daled Minim it is. Etrog hagazul v'hayavesh pasol, sounds exactly like Lulav and Hadassim and Aravot that we've seen previously. Shel asher v'shel nidachat pasol, we heard that before, same as before. But now we get to the new part. Shel orla pasol. Orla, the first 3 years of a tree's existence, one may not consume its fruits, off limits. That somehow is pasul. Shel truma tmeya, pasul. That's no good. In other words, truma that was going to be given to a kohen, already arrived at a kohen's possession, but became tameh, therefore can't be eaten, is pasul. Yet, strangely enough, shel truma tehora lo yitol. You shouldn't use truma that is tahor. Who's going to use truma that's tahor? Is that for Yisrael or for a Kohen, right? Because Yisrael is not allowed to use it anyway.
No.
So lo yitol v'im natal kasher. But if it was taken, that would be permissible.
Is Arla applicable to?
Wait, I'm getting questions. Wait, Ronnie, hold 1 second. Yeah. I'll repeat the question.
The question was only for the Kohen it's kosher or for anybody?
Yeah, that is the question. I haven't answered it yet, but you're thinking along the lines of the question. The question was, is it only for the Kohen or is it for anybody? The answer is, yeah, that's the question that the Gemara is going to try to unpack. What does that mean? That the truma tahora, don't use it, but if you used it, that's okay. For who? For Yisrael? For a Kohen? Please. Larry, wait. Ronnie was in line in the queue next. Hold on. Ronnie, go ahead.
Is Arla applicable only in Eretz Yisrael, or is it also applicable in Chutz La'aretz?
For all intents and purposes, it's applicable in Chutz La'aretz. Even though the Psukim lend themselves toward only applying in Eretz Yisrael, it's a notable exception. The level of application, that's a whole other discussion, but generally Orla is a factor even in Chutz La'aretz. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and things that grow in Chutz La'aretz as well. Larry, go ahead.
Does the Im Natal Kasher only apply to the Truma Tahora or to all?
Only Truma Tahora. Truma Tameya would be pasul. Then the Gemara comes to Demai. Shel Demai, Beit Shammai Poslin, Beit Hillel Machshirin. What's Demai? Demai reflects the reality of Jewish community at a certain moment in Jewish history. You have your people who are very much caring about their religious observance, and you have a whole stratum of people who they're happy to do like a baseline, but don't hock them a chinik about every little detail. This was a moment in Jewish history. It's not our moment, of course, but it was a moment in Jewish history. So the Torah is very clear that if you eat tevel, untithed produce, the punishment is mita b'dei shamayim. So no one wants to test that. Now, truma gedola, the first tithe that one takes, that's going to a kohen, one little piece of grain would be enough to be poter, the kri, the whole pile, the whole heap. There are amounts that one has to take. Generally, we say, you're taking the Rabbanan, we're saying 1/50th, something around this, around 2%. We're taking a very, very small amount. But that's the one with the big penalty. Then you have the mitzvah Maaser Rishon. That's already a 10th. Then there's Maaser Sheni in years 1, 2, 4, and 5. In years 3 and 6, Maaser Ani. Those actually need to be taken as well, but they don't carry the penalty. You had a situation in Jewish history, Bayit Sheni, where there was a whole class of people. They were known as the Amei Haaretz. It was not known in the pejorative sense that we say it today, by the way. Because you call someone Am Haaretz, it's generally not a compliment. But the Am Haaretz means like, you're salt of the earth. Like, you're a person of the land. there was a tinge of pejorative element to it, because the other people, the people who followed all of halacha punctiliously when it came to these various tithes, they were called the chaverim. Our aspiration each month, chaverim kol Yisrael, right? Nowadays has a certain connotation of achdut and togetherness, but at a certain moment, the word chaverim means the people who actually are plugged in and care about the details of mitzvahs. And now buying produce from someone who you're not sure what their status is left you in a state of demai. This produce that you're taking, you're not sure if the people bothered beyond the initial truma that they needed to take. And therefore, it's in a suffix when you get it initially about whether you have to tithe further. So Chaverim had their own network. Amei Haaretz were the majority; they had their own network. But oftentimes, the Am Haaretz would sell to the Chaver. The Chaver now brings it home. They still have to be mafrish, Maaser Rishon, Maaser Sheni, or Maaser Ani, depending on the year, and of course Levium. Also Trumat Maaser, etc. So that was a point of uncertainty. So Beit Shammai say, well, that's puzzle to use Demai, and Beit Hillel are Maaser Demai. So Maaser Sheni
Excuse me,
B'Yerushalayim.
this Demai in the case of Beit Shammai, was it the one that was already mafrished? Or
Yeah,
was it-
everyone agrees that that Truma itself was taken.
Right.
The question is, we don't know about the rest. So when you get Demai, could you use it in its state of Demai? Yes or no? Beit Shammai says no. Beit Hillel says yes. That's the issue. Shel Maaser Sheni B'Yerushalayim. Again, the same strange phrase we had before. Lo yitol v'im natal kosher. Now, Maaser Sheni. Remember the mitzvah of Maaser Sheni. Year 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the sabbatical cycle is to eat the produce in Yerushalayim, or if you live far distance, to transform it to substitute it for money, bring the money to Yerushalayim and buy the produce in Yerushalayim and eat it there. So the idea that you're not supposed to use it when you get to Yerushalayim, but if you did, okay, it's still kosher. What is that about? It's like do it or don't do it, but something seems to be a lechatchila b'diavad going on. Then pretty much the rest of the Mishnah now moves away from halachic status, just what's happened to it, etc., and now shifts into whole new territory unique to the Etrog about its appearance. Things about it. Alta chazazit al rubo. It's missing. It has blemishes, like it's pockmarked and it's coating on the outside of it, so that it looks very, very bumpy, but not the regular bumps. It's that there are pieces sticking out. I didn't bring my picture book tonight, but when we go back to the base management for Monday, bring the picture books. We can leaf through it. You can see the actual pictures of what they look like, photographs. So alta chazazit al rubo. That's not good. Nitla pitmato, everyone knows that's the pitum. The pitum comes off. We'll see the picture of that. The pitum and the shoshanta are two different things. We'll come to that. Niklaf, it was peeled. Nizdak, it has a crack in it. Nikav, it has a hole in it. V'chaser kolshu, it's missing any part of it, an abscess. There's a part like cut off or something. Puzzle, it's no good. We'll see soon, not tonight, when we get there, just coming attractions, that there will be a distinction between the first day and the other days about how strict you're going to be about some of these versus others.
Which
And
we
rem-
spoke about it initially.
Yeah, which we did speak about. We did speak about, by the way, at the top of the Mishnah, like why is Lulav Hayavesh not down here? Why is it up there? The answer is because that's the syntax of the Mishnayot. Lulav Hadas Arava, right? It started with Lulav Hagazel. So it's Hadas Hagazel, Arava Gazul. Now it's Etrog Hagazel. It just flows in that way. Follow? So therefore, Yavesh went with it because that was the syntax. But this is obviously what's unique to the world of Etrog. So we have here Alta Chazazit Al Miyuto. If there is the Chazazit, again, means like blistering that takes place, but it's on a minority of it. Natal Oktso. If the oketz, which is on the bottom of the etrog, when you're holding it up, the pitum is on top. So if the bottom of it comes off, nikav velo chaser, kolshu, kosher. If there's a hole, but it did not actually remove or create an absence at all, that would still be kosher. We'll have to look up what does that mean? Because there's a hole. So if there's a hole, obviously something seems to be missing. Yeah, so that's what we have to parse, right? So if it goes further, etrog akushi puzzle. If it comes from the land of Kush, from Africa, So it's not going to be good. It's very, very dark. Not going to work. Vayora kikarti, if it's a particular kind of a green, looks like a leek, that's not going to be good. A dark, deep green. Rabbi Meir Machshir, sorry, Vayora kikarti, Rabbi Meir Machshir v'Yehuda posel. Sorry, there is a machloket on that last one.
Yeah, because
Yeah, we'll get to the Italian
green,
ones. It's going to be
right,
something else.
because
We'll get to that. We'll
they're-
get to that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. That's what we're going to talk about the Yanov. We're going to talk about the
They're
Yanovs.
totally. green.
Right. So, but we have to see that the kind of yarok over here does not seem to be exactly that green. It seems to be a deeper green,
Yeah.
a deep forest green, like an evergreen picture, like really dark.
The machloket between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai and Demai, does that pertain only to being Netilat Lulav, or do they have the same machloket about eating Demai?
Well, you're not allowed to eat demai if you're a chaver. They don't eat demai. But you're right. You're on to something.
Well,
It is related.
so I was gonna ask the other question, the other side of this question, which is, why the laws of eating when it comes to truth, right? Because Demai is all about eating something.
Yeah.
How does that apply to the etrog? Because generally you're taking it, you're not eating.
You're not eating the etrog, right?
So why would?
Right. Why do we care if you can eat it or
Why
not?
do we even care, right?
Excellent question.
So-
This is tonight's Gemara. We'll go into exactly this question. Why do we care? The question was, why do we care if you can eat it or not?
Wait,
Right? And the question of Demai also
Why
is
do you- No, why do you care if you eat it now? Why do you impose a standard of eating?
on a food, on an item that you're not actually going to eat.
You're not eating.
Right. You're not eating it. You're taking it in hand. Well, fair point.
if you have. something-
Larry Friedman's next. Yeah.
If you have something that's mukdash to the Kohen, Truma, he hasn't delivered it yet, it's out of bounds.
Right.
So so if you have something that is in the category of Demai, why isn't that treated the same way?
Demai does not, why isn't Demai in the same category as, let's say, Truma Tehora, right? So the difference would be that the Truma Tehora, if you're a Kohen, it is something you're allowed to eat. The Demai, you're not really allowed to eat, but the eating of Demai does not carry the same penalty as eating Tevel. And that's where people are kind of like, but the more fundamental question, Mark's question, but we're not actually eating the etrog. So what do we care? Like you have to pick it up, right? But this is actually going to be part of the question. Then we get to Maaser Sheni, you're supposed to eat it. So why is it saying you really shouldn't? Except if you took it, you shouldn't eat it. You know, you're supposed to eat it in Yerushalayim. So you really shouldn't use it for the dalamina. But if you did, you Yotze. Why is that?
Does eating mean just consumption, or does it mean getting hana?
Two different questions, correct. Achila and hana, two different questions.
Okay.
Eating versus gaining some kind of benefit from it. Exactly on the point about it.
Maybe in the
Right.
case of Maaser Sheni, because when you take it to Yerushalayim, the cash or even the produce, they're supposed to eat it. And Etrog, you don't normally eat, you make a bracha on it, and maybe later on you,
Not when it's hooked till mitzvato.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
these are all the good questions. These are all the questions that come about as a result of the Mishnah. Everyone's already thinking in the lines of the Gemara. This is how the Gemara starts to analyze what's going on here. We don't have to spend too much time on the earlier sections because we've done them before, but we're going to be interested in what is the characteristic of the etrog that makes it so special,
Right.
and yet somehow even though you're not allowed to eat it, you have to be able to eat it. Is that really a factor? Or what about, is it an issue of getting enjoyment from it? Mitzvah lav lehanot nenu. You're not allowed to get personal benefit from any of these items during the time of the mitzvah anyway.
But mitzvah
So-
oraita, the Torah says pre-Eitz Hadar, so therefore when we say pre-Eitz Hadar, it's coming from a tree, and therefore Trumat and Maaser, what would have to be taken off of it because of the fact that you're
That
getting,
it's already a fruit,
it's already a fruit. So
as opposed to
therefore,
the other items which are not a fruit.
Exactly.
Well said. Well said. Okay, we'll see what the Gemara does with this. So the
Okay.
Gemara, we didn't finish the Mishnah. We're going to finish the last few lines of the Mishnah.
No, it's
But-
already a fruit, but that still doesn't answer the question over there.
No, that's a very good question that Mark's asking. And,
No.
but
You know, shaking a lulav doesn't have anything to do with eating it, so, you know, why would you?
They're eating a lulav.
can you guys hear the questions on the phone, by the way? Yeah? Okay, not so much. Ronnie, not. Eddie, yes. Judah, no? And Jeff, the screen's blacked out, so I don't know. Okay, well, it was a discussion about the basic issues that are about to come up in the Gemara, but you see that we're already, which is good. You look at the Mishnah. What's this? What's that? Why these categories? How do they hold together? The Mishnah rather goes on the bottom of Lamed Adam and Bet, 4 lines up from the bottom. Shir Etrog Hakatan. Rabbi Meir Omer Egoz, could be as small as a walnut. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Kibetza, has to be at least the size of a kibetza. That's the smallest it could be. Uvegadol, how big can it be? According to Rabbi Yehuda. The Kadesh Yochaz Shnayim Biyado, the Rabbi Yehuda. You'd be able to hold 2 in your hand. Rabbi Yossi Omer Afil Echad B'Shtei Yadav. According to Rabbi Yossi, you could have an etrog that literally need 2 hands in order to hold. We do not paskin that way. Well,
There was a movie about it.
there was a movie about that, but a very extremely large etrog. So that's the Mishnah, I would say, and let's see the Gemara. I pretty much ran through the Rashi, the pieces of Rashi. Again, I'm trying to lay low on Rashi. We'll need some of them now in the Gemara in 35a Lamed Hamid Aleph. But I don't want to start engaging all the Rishonim now. My point is just to try to cycle through this Gemara. We'll see how far we get in the remaining time. The Gemara begins with.
Rabbi?
Yep. Sorry, Ronnie, go ahead.
Quick question. I don't know if Ira was referring to this before, but maybe the idea that it has to be edible, that eligible for eating is because it is, after all, a fruit. And if it's a fruit that can't be eaten, then in essence, it's not hadar at all.
And it's missing part of its fruit status.
Yes.
Right? The other items don't have any utility. I mean, there's the aromatic component, I suppose, but you're not eating it. It doesn't lose its status one way or the other. But if you can't eat this fruit, is it still a fruit? Sort of philosophical question.
Well, but the truth
Right.
is, after Sukkot is over, you can take the etrog and
Yeah.
make it into jam or whatever.
Right.
Except if it was truma
Except
and you're a
if it was
Yisrael.
Right.
Right. And
There's
you
no potential to eat the other things.
Right. So that's where the question comes up. So the Gemara begins by trying to parse what the pre-Eitz Hadar is. I'll just remind you, we won't go down that road again, but this is one of the main examples, the Etrog. Someone asks you, what's an example of Halach Moshe Sinai? Right? What's an example of something that's like in the Masorah from the very beginning? The answer is an Etrog. Like we wouldn't really know otherwise what it is. It's really just one generation next. Okay, the Gemara is describing it this way and that, but as we'll see shortly, the Gemara will find another contender that might fit the bill for what might be a pre-Eitz Hadar. So the Gemara Tanu Rabbanan, pre-Eitz Hadar, Eitz Shitam Eitzo Upiryo Shava. The fruit and its branch have the same taste. So the Rishonim have this whole discussion about what exactly does that mean? Can you actually eat the bark of the etrog tree? There are different ideas that it has to do with that. There is a certain bitterness in the wood of the twigs that you find also in the outer shell, the outer casing of the etrog. So Ve'omer is the etrog. That's what the etrog is. Ve'emel pilpulin. Maybe that's also true for pepper, like peppercorns. Kidatanya Hayri Meir Omer Mimashma Shenemar Unatatem Kol Eitz Eni Yodeshu Eitz Ma'achal. Rabbi Meir would say that the fact that the Torah expresses the mitzvah of Orla in Parshat Kedoshim, and it says Unatatem Kol Eitz Ma'achal, right? So don't I know that it's an Eitz Ma'achal? The pasuk actually uses this expression that you're going to plant an Eitz Ma'achal. Why does it mention Matam Eitz Ma'achal? Why is it an Eitz Ma'achal? Just call it an Eitz. Or, so why is that? So Eitz Shatam Eitzo Upiryo Shava. It has to be where the taste of the tree and the fruit are equivalent. Judah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's shaveh, not shava. Shaveh.
Shaveh. Thank you.
Yes. Zachar.
Thank you. Arthur is here. He's too polite. He didn't want to correct me, but thank you. Shaveh. Huh?
Why can't you distinguish between a fruit tree and an elm tree?
Only because the fruit tree, it will describe in the Psukim in Perek Yotet. If you have the Chumash,
Forgive me, that's not my question.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't quick.
Oh.
The reason, one could say that the reason why Ma'achal is there, because it is only relating to trees that bear fruit, as distinguished from a non-fruit bearing tree, such as an elm tree.
And therefore,
Therefore, there is a reason, you don't have to go any further to give another reason why an Eitz Ma'achal is one where the bark and the fruit have the same taste. It could even be a fruit-bearing tree where the bark and the fruit do not have the same bearing same taste.
Well, that's why it says eitz ma'achal, right? That's what the Torah, that's what the Gemara is saying.
The Gemara is saying that the definition of an eitz ma'achal is both the bark and the fruit have to have the same taste. And I'm saying you could have a logical explanation, because the reason the word ma'achal is there is to distinguish it from all fruit-bearing trees on the one hand and all non-fruit-bearing trees, irrespective of whether the fruit-bearing trees, the bark and the fruit are the same taste.
Okay, I hear your point, but don't forget, when you look up chapter 19 in Sefer Vayikra, which I'm putting on the screen, if you want to look it up, you can as well, in your Chumash. So chapter 19, if you look at just the first verse, it's chapter 19, verse 23, Pasuk Chav Gimel. So in Parshat Kedoshim, it makes the point, V'chitavo el ha'aretz unutatem kol eitz ma'achal, va'araltem orlato et piryo, shalosh shanim yeh lachem arelim lo yachel. The point is that it mentions the eitz ma'achal, and then it mentions its fruit. So it could have just said, unutatem kol eitz, va'araltem orlato et piryo. We would have understood. It's a fruit. It's a tree that has a fruit. It called it the fruit, the tree of food.
What I'm reacting to is the statement that the definition of an eitz ma'achal is not all fruit-bearing trees, rather it's limited to those fruit-bearing trees where the bark and the fruit have the same taste.
Right. But the drasha that Chazal have is davka that expression means to signal to us that it's tam eitzu pirya shava.
I understand that, but I don't understand how they got that drasha. It's not important. I mean,
Okay. I mean,
forget it.
then when you get to the next pasuk, it mentions again uvashana haraviit yeh kol piryo kodesh hilulim laHashem, and the next pasuk uvashana chamishit tochlu et piryo losif lechem tvuato ani Hashem Elokeichem. That's the parsha of Orla.
Which would suggest that the din of Orla only applies to that definition of fruit that comes from eitz ma'achal.
Yeah.
Namely, bark and fruit are the same taste.
Okay, right. But the right. So the idea here that Rabbi Meir has is not accepted by everyone. The Braita begins here again. Tana Rabbanan pre-eitz Hadar. What does pre-eitz Hadar mean? Eitz shatam eitzo piryo shaveh. Heve omer ze Etrog. So what is that? It's an Etrog. The Gemara says, really? According to Rabbi Meir, pilpulin fall into that category as well. Rabbi Meir omer mimash m'shnemu unatatem kol eitz eini yodeh shu eitz ma'achal ma tamud lomar eitz ma'achal eitz shatam eitzo piryo shaveh heve omer ze pilpulin l'lamdecha shal pilpulin chayavin ba'orla. That's a chiddush, because pilpulin are pepper. It's pepper. It's not a fruit, but it's elevated to be as if it's like a fruit, and that orla applies to it, just like fruits of the tree. And that's the chiddush, because tam eitzo pirya shaveh.
Right.
That's the chiddush
Can I?
of Rabbi Meir. Yeah.
I just had one quick, since I joined this year late, in the cycle, why is this the first time we're trying to figure out what
Pre-eitz Hadar, what it is?
Hadar is Etrog. We're like almost done with the entire Masechta. And we're now.
We're not done with the time of Sefta, don't you worry. We got lots to go.
Okay.
But we're in. But you're right. But it's because when we learned this sugya, we started with the psukim, and we started with Ukatan Chembayim Rishon pre-eitz Hadar Kapotrim. So I walk you through this, and we stopped pre-eitz Hadar. Well, what is that?
Okay.
So we said, the Rambam and Hakdamah Perush Mishnah points out this is the greatest example of a tradition, because you wouldn't really be able to figure it out just by dint of thinking the pre-eitz Hadar means the beautiful fruit or something. What is that? So you have all different drushes about what the word Hadar means. So what is that fruit? And the drasha here of the Braita, we haven't seen what we spoke about. In other words, that tam eitzu pirya shaveh is like the characteristic of what pre-eitz Hadar means. That's what makes it beautiful, in a way.
I'm just thinking,
I'm like holding myself back. We're in a Gemara shir. I will not say anything hashkafic, philosophical, but man, I got a lot of drushes for sukkahs just from these lines. Really, today I was like sitting, it's like writing and writing and writing. So you'll wait for sukkahs. I thought of that back in Chodesh Sivan, the last night. Actually,
Just-
Tammuz now,
Tammuz.
Chodesh Tov. We're not really Shloshim
Right,
Sivan
right.
now, it's Lamed, but okay.
Just quickly, could one, I'm just thinking, could one make a comparison between the etrog that we pre-Eitz Hadar and with Pesach, with the concept of matzah in the sense of the wheat, in terms of you're getting yes, you're getting hana out of it, but the same concept is with truma and Maaser, you have to take it off anyway when you eat the matzah.
So we're going to get to that later on the page. I don't know if we'll get there
I'm
tonight.
just thinking
But
out
yes,
loud.
there is a comparison to be made between these two, except that, of course, the major difference, you actually end up eating the matzah, and it's back to Mark's question from before. You don't actually eat the etrog as part of the service. It's part of the avodah Hashem, the mitzvah, so to eat it. So why should we care if you took truma? You didn't take truma, right? I mean,
Well, because one, like I was saying, one could eat it after, and then you'd have
okay,
to-
so that's going to be our question. Why is the fact you could eat it later have any impact on whether you could eat it now? You can't eat it now. So what, right? But
Right.
we're here in the Gemara, the Breita is starting with pre-Eitz Hadar. The drasha that Chazal have, uncontested, is that it refers to what makes it beautiful. One of its main characters is that the Tam Eitzu Pir Shavet. They have the same taste, the continuity between the tree and its produce, right? So what is that? That's the etrog. And the Gemara says, yeah, but what about pilpulin? That's also like that. How do I know? Because Rabbi Meir had a drasha on the words from the mitzvah of Orla to include pepper that grows in the little twigs from a little plant, even though it's not a lush peach, but it doesn't matter. Somehow, because of this drush, it's also Tam Eitzu Pir Shaveh. So it tells you the pilpulin chayav be'orla, the ein Eretz Yisrael chasera klum, and Eretz Yisrael is not lacking for anything. Shenamar, as it says in the Torah in Parshat Ekev, lo techsar kol ba. Right? There's nothing missing from the land of Israel. Lo techsar kol ba. Everything is there. The Gemara answers, Hata mishum d'lo afshar. The reason why the pasuk for the etrog, ulakachtem lachem b'marishon pre-Eitz Hadar, could not possibly mean peppercorns, is how that's not possible. Hechi navid. How would it look? Ninkot chada lo minkara. You're going to take one little peppercorn, you're going to hold it up. No one would even see it. You wouldn't even see it, right? Lo minkara lekichata. No one would see that you took it. So ninkot trei otlata. So why don't you take two? Maybe you want to take three. Take a handful. So the Masorah Shas points out it's pre-echad amar rachmanu lakachim lachem b'marishon pre-Eitz Hadar, one, not several. Right? V'lo shnayim ushlosha perot hilkach lo afshar. Therefore, it's not possible. But the truth is, the Gemara allows there is something other than an etrog, Tam Eitzu Pir Shaveh. That's pilpulin. It also grows in Eretz Yisrael, and it's also subject to oil. It's a noted exception. It's not true for other spices that grow, but pilpulin it is. Rabbi Omer al tikri hadar ela hadir. Don't read the language of hadar as beauty, but Rabbi says homiletically, but a halachic homily, read it like a deer, like a pen. Ma dir zeh yesh b'gedol muktanim tamimim u'balei mumin. Hachinami yesh b'gedol muktanim tamimim u'balei mumin. So just as the pen contains animals that are larger, smaller, whole, and blemished, so too with regard to the pre-Eitz Hadar, that's going to be true as well. And that's what it means. Pre-Eitz Hadar, pre-Eitz Hadir. Put a chirik under the letter Dalet instead of keeping it as a kamatz. So the Gemara says, Atu sha'ar perot leitbu gedolim ketanim tamimim balei mumin. That's not very good, a good comparison. All the other fruits that we have also have larger, smaller, some that are blemished, some that are whole, like Elahachi Kamar. At shaboin ketanim adayin gedolim kayamin. Rabbi says, no, what I meant to say was, it's just like a pen where while the younger ones arrive, the smaller ones arrive, the older ones are still extant. Now, what does he mean? The etrog tree can retain its fruits for a very long time. Normally, a fruit over ripens and it falls off. The etrog tree, apparently, I'm not an expert in this, but this is Rabbi's contention, and I, of course, accept whatever he says. As the older fruits, meaning the ones that have already, they're ripe and they're on the tree, are there, younger ones are still coming out. And you could have the older and the younger on the tree at the same time. Hadar, Ilan Mishana, Shana L'Shana, that's the drasha. It lives on the tree from year to year. So Rebbe, this is Rebbe's version. He says how you read the word Hadar. That's what you're going to see it that way. And the next line is Rabbi Abau Amar Al Tikre Hadar. Don't read it Hadar like beauty. Ella Davar Shedar Be'ilano Mishana L'Shana. Read it as not pre-eitz Hadar, but pre-eitz Hadar. It's dar. It dwells like a dira is a house, a dwelling place rather. It dwells on its tree from 1 year to the next. Ben Azai Omer. A lot of you are not going to like this, but this is what Ben Azai says. Ben Azai Omer, Al Tikre Hadar, Ella. Rather should read it as, he writes here in the Gemara, Idur, and the Aruch has the word Hadur, Hey Dalad Vav Reish, Shekain Beloshin Yavani Korim Lamayim Idur, because we call water in Greek, it's referred to as Idur. Again, Masor Shah says Hidur. You know the word? Hydro? Hydro. Hydra, hydro.
Right.
Hydrated, dehydrated,
And
hydra from the
always
Greek.
on whole
So he
bunch
says
of
that's the
things.
word Hadar is. Ve'ezuhi should gidel. No one jumped on me. Ve'ezu should gidel alamayim, which is the one that grows near the water. Haveomer is the etrog. That's the etrog that grows next to water. And the Mefarshim point out it means any kind of water. Mayim that comes from the sky, mayim that comes from channels, mayim that comes from mayim she'uvim that you draw from the ground. It's associated with water, which is of course all of the Daled Minim are very much about water. Arvei Nachal, most of them all, right? But all of them. What a fascinating idea, right? Like how could that be? So the various Mefarshim try to point out that that Lashon in Lashon HaKodesh, which then became the root language for all other languages, that somehow it impacted the later, at the time of Migdal Bavel, that the word Hidur, Hadar, was already associated with water, and the Greeks picked it up and they did something with it. It's an interesting idea. I'm not an expert in semantics, linguistics. Again, I tend to favor Chazal's interpretation. I will point out, as others have pointed out to me, that the words Aleph, Bet, Gimel are not accidentally like Alpha, Beta, Gamma. And nobody contests that, of course, the Semitic language of Hebrew well antedates the arrival of ancient Greece. So, are there roots that are common? Yeah. There's something there. There's something there to be sure. Again, drushes galore just from that last piece. But I will resist the temptation. As I get schar for the drisha and the drasha, I'm getting schar for the prisha for staying away, not doing that, not indulging it. But what you have here is this first section is like a taxonomy. Or rather, taxonomy is the wrong word. It's trying to define what do you mean by pre-eitz hadar that you're speaking of. So we know some of these drushes, but as you know, the Gemara is not linear. It's not working like a Western book normally functions, where it's like, let me give you the names and the definitions, and we'll get back to it. No, the Gemara presupposes since the time you were 5 years old, you saw an etrog, you know what that looks like. How come you know what it looks like? Because there's a Masorah. How come there's a Masorah? Lachamush Sinai came from all the generations. By the by, how do you darshan it from the pasuk? So everybody knows it's this one or this one or this. So all the drushes happen to be lined up. This is its headquarters. Why didn't it say it earlier in the parak? It started with lulav. We talked about why that is. Tallest, most prominent. We talked about the waving, has most to do with it, right? And then we moved in a stepwise fashion from lulav, and then we went to the others. We had hadassim, then a ravot, and now we're up to etrog, right? So now we're focused on this as a fruit, and this is these drushes is trying to understand like what is one of its main characteristics. Eitz shatam eitz upir shavet. Yep.
I was going to say that's interesting that he talks about the fruit being by the water, and we say in a number of places, V'hayaki esh shatul al pal remayim, referring to the tzaddik who's not going to be driven off. And so maybe that's an interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And the tzaddik, right? You're drawing me in, Benny.
Okay.
The tzaddik, exactly. Tzaddik katamar yifrach. There's a lot there. Okay. Come back on Sukkot. This is like a gold mine over here. Just this page, mamash, for the drushes. Okay, but again, and of course, I mean to atomize it. Of course, the Gemara is integrated, right? It's not like this, like a book for halach and a book for hashkafa. Davka, the two are right, are intertwined. It's only later that you have the Sifrei Halach and the Sifrei Agadah somehow cloven one from the other, but you do see it is integrated. Let's move on. Shel Shev Shirli Dachat Pasal My Tama Kavan de L'Sreifa Kai Kitute Mechtat Shiurei. I'm in the middle of page Lamed Hamid Aleph at the 2 dots. Shel Shev Shirli Dachat Pasal. Yeah, I got 9 minutes on the clock before everyone turns into pumpkins and runs away. So I think, by the way, it's the time.
No, I'm gonna stay.
You're gonna stay? Okay, you want to see how it ends, right? So this is kind of a strange thing that the Gemara had to tell us this. We'll see if some of the Rishonim next time deal with it. Hint, hint, they do. Like we knew this already, right? If it belongs to an Asherah, remember that, or belongs to the city that's slated for destruction, it's possible. Why? Since it's standing to be burned, it's going to be destroyed, so it doesn't have a shear. The best I can tell you on the level of shot is the other things were about their height, and this is an object where the size of it has to do with its volume. So it actually occupies volume. That when the size, remember, it had to be 3 tefachim, etc. So now it's not even a tefach. It's like nothing. But what do you have here? This object now, we find out that its volume, even though you can hold it and cup it in your hand, it's like it's not there. Kavan the Sreifa Kai, it's like it doesn't exist, and it does have to have a shear from a halachic vantage point. Then comes Orla.
What is the word?
The Sreifa, burning, Sreifa. The Sreifa Kai means it stands to be burned. It's slated for burning. I mean, it means it's slated for destruction. Yeah. So Shel Orla Puzzle. Now we come to the meat and potatoes for tonight. My time. What's the reason? Pligi bar Rabbi Chia bar Avin Rabbi Asi. This is the machloket between the two about why Orla should be puzzle. Chad Amar lefi she'ein baheter achila. V'chad Amar lefi she'ein badin mamun. According to one opinion, you're not allowed to eat it. If you're not allowed to eat it, then you can't use it as your etrog. The other opinion says it does not have any value. Rashi writes here, she'ena shava pruta de isuri hanahu hilkach lav shalachemhu. Oh, this other opinion is about hana'ah. It doesn't have status of having money. The status of its financial status is 0. It's not even worth a pruta. Why not? If it's asr b'hana'ah, it doesn't have a monetary value. That's the halacha. And therefore, it's not shelachem, and you need it to be ulekachtem lachem by a marishim pre-Eitz Hadar, etc. And you're lacking lachem if it does not actually belong to you. By the by, lafi she'ein baheter achilish. Look at Rashi on the right-hand side. It's about the third way down the page. The first 2 words on the line are lashon dira from before. We don't need it right now. But lafi she'ein baheter achil, it's dibra matchil. There's no heter to eat it. V'rachmana amar, and the Torah says lachem means hara'ui lachem b'chol darkei hana'ato, that it's appropriate for you to use in any way of its enjoyment, i.e., up to and including eating it. And the second reason is because it doesn't have any financial stature. It's a 0. Therefore, because of the fact that it's asr b'hana. So what we're going to find, just to preempt you so you don't jump on me because we're running out of time, we're going to find that there is going to be a case where something has a heter achila and yet an isser hana'ah, and maybe something with a heter hana'ah, but an isser achila. We're going to see that case. It's coming. But here, before we get there, the Gemara has mechanics here. Back in the Gemara. Kasalka daite man debai heter achila lo bai din mamun, uman debai din mamun lo bai heter achila. We're of the opinion here, based on this, that one person says you have to be able to eat it, even if you don't have a heter hana, and the other one says you need a heter hana, even if you're not able to eat it. That's what it sounds like, right? The 2 are mutually exclusive. But is that really true? Or aren't the 2 of these things intrinsically related to each other? The heter hana and the heter achila both have to be extant. Yet we see there's an argument between 2 people about this. Remember, what Rashi did here, and we're just going to deal with Rashi tonight, these were definitions of the word lachem. What does belongs to you mean? Belongs to you means you could do anything you want with it. You could eat it. Or does belongs to you mean that actually it has some kind of monetary value that's related to you, even if you can't personally eat it yourself, but it actually has some stature when it's forbidden from enjoyment completely in any way, shape, or form, right? Remember, you're not allowed to eat meat and milk that are mixed, that are cooked together. You also can't sell it. You can't own, controlling shares in a company where that's what they deal in. It's Isser Hana. I'd never eat that. Yeah, but I'm selling it. No, you're not allowed to sell that. That's an Isser Hana. So these are 2 different categories, Isser Achila, Isser Hana. And the Gemara says, it sounds like they're mutually exclusive. You can have one or the other, but aren't they intertwined? So the Gemara says, Tanan, we learned, shel truma tmeya. Let's say truma tmeya. We said that's puzzle. All right, I wrote here a psula, but it should really be puzzle. So what's the problem with truma tmeya? Truma tmeya was truma that you took, you were bringing to the Kohen, and a sheretz ran over it and made it not usable. It's tame now. So bishlam lamanda amar lafisha ein ba'heter achila. Shop here. Oh, truma tmeya. I get it. I can't eat it now. No one can eat it. Not the Kohen, not the so no one's allowed to eat it. So if that's true, I understand why it should be puzzle. Ela lamanda amar lafisha ein badin mamon. Amai. But the person who holds that you cannot use for the etrog something that you are not allowed to have hana from, but if you can have hana from it, even if you can't eat it, that is permissible to use for the etrog. Hare mesika tacha tavshilo. There's a halach about truma tameya that you're allowed to use it as firewood. You can take the food that's truma tameya and put it under as kindling into your fire to increase the fire, assuming it's a dry, whatever it is. It's pick a thing, wheat, So you're going to put it with your coals. It's going to heat it up more. It's good. It's going to combust. Wonderful. You're allowed to do that with truma tameya. So according to the opinion that holds the truma tameya is puzzle, that seems to prove the side that says you have to be able to eat the etrog. But having the heter hana'a, having enjoyment from it, does not seem to be the qualification, because you see the truma tameya is puzzle. Yet you're allowed to have enough from truma tameya. Ergo, it must be an issue of achila, right? So rather the Gemara says ela beheter achila kula amal lo pligi debainan. Everybody agrees that you require the heter achila, and if you can't eat it, even if you're allowed to have enjoyment from it, like truma tameya, that's puzzle. Keep pligi. What's the argument? Bedin mamon. They're trying to really argue. They're drilling down to understand what does it mean that we need to have the din mammon. Marsavar heter achila ba'inan, din mammon lo ba'inan. One holds that you need to have the ability to eat it, but it doesn't have to have any personal value that you personally own it. Umarsavar din mammon nami ba'inan, you also need to own it. So my benayu, when could you find a practical difference between these two opinions? It seems so far-fetched. Ika benayu, the Gemara says. You know what the difference is? You know where that comes up? Maaser Sheni Shibru Shalayim Aliba de Rabbi Meir. Maaser Sheni in Yerushalayim according to Rabbi Meir. Now let me just tell you this outside, and we'll see the lines inside. Maaser Sheni means I took a secondary tithe. When I took the first tithe, Maaser Rishon, I took 10%. Does it belong to me now that I took the tithe? It does not belong to me. Who does it belong to? It belongs to the Levi. So when I take the second tithe, who does the second tithe belong to? For your use in Yerushalayim.
Only Yerushalayim.
Machloket Rabbi Meir and the Chachamim, who owns that produce? Rabbi Meir maintains that when you take that secondary tithe, it's not yours. It belongs to the temple treasury. But the temple treasury, Hekdesh, gives you a heter that you can eat it in one place, inside Yerushalayim. By the way, Orla, in year 4, you can't eat your fruit in year 4. You have to wait till year 5. But Kodesh Yiluim Lashem, in the 4th year, if you bring up to Yerushalayim, you have a heter to eat it there. Maaser, let's stick with Maaser Sheni. According to Rabbi Meir, Maaser Sheni does not belong to you. You're eating the food that is not your property, but you're permitted to eat. You have a heter achila, even though this object does not have a din mammon. Why doesn't it have a din mammon? Because to you, it's worth nothing now. You can't do anything with it. It belongs to the temple treasure, belongs to Hekdesh. So the Gemara here says, Ikabana is the difference. Maaser Sheni should be Shlam at Libid Meir. By the way, Chachamim disagree. Chachamim say, no, the secondary tithe that you took, the primary tithe that Yisrael took, belongs to the Levi. The secondary tithe, belongs to you, but you just can't eat it where you live in Netanya. You got to go down to Yerushalayim. Not good enough in Chevron. You got to go to Yerushalayim. That's the idea. Lamanda Amar Lafi She'ein B'Heter Achila. Sorry.
If it doesn't belong to you, according to the data that it doesn't belong to you, how are you allowed to sell it and bring the money to Yerushalayim?
You're transferring the Kedusha. And that you have a special heter to do, but it still doesn't belong to you.
So you can sell what doesn't belong to you. That's very strange. Okay.
You're not selling. You're transferring the Kedusha. It's a good question. You're transferring the Kedusha from this object onto the money, which you're bringing up to Shalayim, which you're then transferring again into produce. That's the din of Maaser Sheni. Now, by the way, Chachamim disagree. For Chachamim, it's much easier. The Chachamim say, you own it, so you do whatever you want with it, right? So now, Lamanda Amar Lafi She'ein B'Heter Achila. Harayesh ba heter achila. According to the opinion that says that there's no heter achila, there is a heter achila. It happens to be in Yerushalayim. L'man da'amar lefi she'ein badin mamon, Maaser Sheni mamon gavohu. According to the opinion that holds that there's no din mamon, so according to Rabbi Meir at least, right? So the Maaser Sheni belongs to mamon gavoha. Tistayim de Rabbi Asi de Amar lefi she'ein badin mamon. Let's conclude here that Rabbi Asi is the one between the two. There was the machloket, right? Was between Rabbi Asi and Rabbi Chia bar Avin. So we have to say that Rabbi Asi is the one that says lefi she'ein badin mamon. The Amar Rabbi Asi, as he said elsewhere, Etrog shel Maaser Sheni divrei Rabbi Meir ein adam yotzei bo yidei chavato b'yom tov. Divrei Chachamim adam yotzei bo yidei chavato b'yom tov. So Rabbi Asi is the one who said that an etrog of Maaser Sheni, according to Rabbi Meir, a person could not be yotzei on Yom Tov. Why not? Because the Maaser Sheni does not belong to you, and you can't eat it unless you're in Shalayim, right? But according to the Chachamim, you could be yotzei because you have a limit where you can eat it, but it belongs to you all the time. You live in wherever, pick a place, Haifa. You can pick it up. It's still yours. You're not allowed to eat it, but you own it. It's still yours. It's Maaser Sheni Etrog. I'm going to bring it after Yom Tov. I'm going to make jam in Yerushalayim, but I can't do it here. Okay. There is another piece where we drill down now, but since we hit the wall of 9:30, maybe we should cut our losses here. What do you think? Because the next piece is where we're going to start bringing in about matzah and Maaser Sheni and Etrog. So you'll have to come back on Monday, or at least you'll have to listen from New York. That's all we have time for tonight. We're just laying the groundwork. Monday night, we'll finish the Gemara, starting with the word Gufa, if you want to look ahead. And we're going to get, hopefully, the 2 dots on Lamed Hey Amud Bet. It's about 7-8 lines down from the top on Lamed Hey Amud Bet. And then we'll start parsing some of the Rishonim and things like that. Thank you all for joining, and have a great night. I'm turning off the recorder. Again, Monday, 7:15 p.m.